Hi everyone and welcome to a new episode of the Wool Revolution podcast. I think it's episode 10, which definitely is something to celebrate. It's been over a year since I started this podcast, but 10 episodes, I think that's a good job. My name is Helena. I'm from Stockholm, Sweden, and I'm sitting in my own office, my knitting, crafting studio, whatever you want to call it. And I'm sitting in my knitting corner, actually. I talked about my new armchair in the last episode. You can't really see... No, you can see. It's got a beautiful red color and like a velvet fabric. It's an old chair from like the 50s, 1950s, I think. And very like typical of that style from like the 50s, 60s, which is very fitting because our house is built 1961, so it fits right in. But it's a bit of a new setup today. We'll see how it looks. I think the light seems okay. I got my window right here. And today it's actually snow outside, which is amazing. It's so beautiful, and of course it helps with the light as well. Because when, like in the winter, when there is no snow, it gets really, really dark this time of year. So the snow helps a lot, which is nice. No sunlight today though, but still very bright outside. I got a little something here right next to me. I'm going to talk about it. It's the nitty elephant in the room for sure. But first of all, let me just talk about this hat. I don't think I've shown this in the podcast before, actually. It's I knit this a few years ago, so it's not a new knit, but it's absolutely one of my most worn knits. I mean, right now I wear it almost like every day when I go outside. I can zoom in a little bit. You can see it's got a beautiful texture up here and just a regular rib. Yeah, I like it a lot. I think the color also is really nice. I knit this from leftover yarn from a sweater, actually. I think I used Filcolana Arvetta and their Filcolana silk mohair. I think it's called... What is it called? Their mohair. Tilia, maybe? And I had some leftovers from the sweater, so I knit this hat. And I didn't follow a pattern, however, I did take a lot of inspiration from a pattern called Vuono hat, I think, I'm not sure. I'll put a picture or something here so you can see. If I remember correctly, I saw that picture and went online to find something similar, and yeah, you can see that this texture up here is very similar. But I haven't bought the pattern, so I can't say anything about the pattern really, but yeah, I'm not sure if I even have the exact same texture on my hat as in the pattern, but definitely similar, so I still want to mention it. So if you want to knit a pattern that looks kind of similar to this, you can always buy her pattern. And the designer of that pattern also has a lot of other beautiful designs, so I recommend checking them out, even though I haven't knit any of her patterns, I think. Now I get unsure, but I think that's the case. Yeah, so I'm wearing that today. Honestly, I'm kind of running out of sweaters to wear. I think I've shown all my hand-knitted sweaters in this podcast actually by now. Maybe I have one or two that I haven't shown yet, probably because like I don't wear them that much. I know I have one sweater I haven't shown and I never wear it because I I wasn't very happy with how it turned out. I think it was like the second sweater I ever made, so that's okay. But yeah, maybe I should wear it on here at some point just to talk about what I don't like about it. But yeah, I just thought about like my hats. I can always wear my hats in the podcast. I would like to show them as well. So yeah, I took the opportunity today to do so. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about 2 finished objects today, which is quite nice. They're both slipovers, and I have 4 new cast-ons actually. We'll see if I talk about all of them, if I have time. And I'm always a bit hesitant to talk about some of my cast-ons, especially like sweater cast-ons or those kind of big projects that I don't follow a pattern for, or like I make up the pattern in my head as I go, because I never know like what direction they're gonna take, so I don't want to talk about something just to like rip it back in the next episode and have nothing to show. So I want to feel certain that they're actually going somewhere, which is, you know, I shouldn't really feel that way because I want this podcast to be all about the process, and I do want to share a lot of like my mistakes and you know, every thought that comes into my head when I'm knitting, especially when I'm knitting or like drawing up the patterns myself. I think that's very you learn a lot from like reflecting about those things, and my favorite podcasts are those that go into like a lot of detail and depth about their projects. I think that's so yeah, it's very nice to learn something from watching other knitters talk about their knitting. So I shouldn't be afraid to talk about projects, even though I might change my mind and rip the whole thing back. So yes, hopefully I'll talk about all my 4 cast-ons today. But let's talk about the finished projects first. And of course, in the end, I'll do a little bit of my new segment and talk about what's on my mind. So some pictures, patterns, inspirations that I have saved on my Instagram account and that I'd like to share with you. So yeah, let's kick it off with this baby. I think it's hard not to start with this. And the reason why I'm not wearing it is because it's a little bit damp still from blocking. I took the risk of hanging it like this on a hanger, which usually isn't a good idea when you have when you're blocking, because yeah, you can see it's like it can easily pucker a little bit from the hanger. But I took the risk because I really want this to dry up soon, and also to show it. It's a lot easier to show it like this. So yeah, let's start with a little bit of a close-up, just to see the amazing color work. Yeah, so this is what's going to be my first garment design, actually. The pattern I have chosen to call vissla slipover. Vissla means whistle in Swedish. And I have, this is the back. So I'm actually gonna get up and get the first sample that I knit, because maybe you remember from like, was it 1 or 2 episodes ago that I showed my first sample. So I'll be back. So I have my first sample here, just to like remind you of what it looked like. And I have a lot to say about this process. I have talked about this a lot, but I realized after I recorded that episode that I forgot to mention a lot of things, so hopefully I'll remember most of it today. However, I will return to this pattern. Absolutely. I mean, next step is to finish writing the pattern. I need to make some adjustments and some of the calculations I need to finish. And then I want it to be tested, of course, so I need to make a call for testers in different sizes, and then we can talk about publishing the pattern. So I will probably return to this in future episodes, and that's good in case I forget to mention something. But let's start with the obvious differences from this version to this version. So I don't know if you can see, but the gauge is very different. If you compare maybe these sections. Oh, you can't really see. Hello. Maybe it's not that visible. But like in real life, it's definitely visible. I don't know why it's not showing. I can't really do this. Now maybe you can see on these. You can see, but the gauge is very different, and the reason is that for this first sample I only used like scrap yarns, so I had no idea. The beige color I knew was raumafinul, but the rest, I think all of them are different scrap yarns, and all of them are around fingering weight, but they were very different in like how tightly they were spun, but also probably like thickness of the yarn. And because I didn't know what yarns I used, the gauge just, I didn't care about the gauge. I just knit. But after knitting this, I realized that I wanted to write this up as a pattern, and of course then I needed to be a lot more certain about the gauge. So I decided for my second sample to only use raumafinul, and my gauge turned out to be around 25 stitches per 10 centimeters on the collar work. However, that was before blocking, but I haven't measured it after blocking, but I don't think it has changed that much, but I'm going to measure it, of course. And on this one it turned out like 27-28 stitches per 10 centimeters, so a little bit different. And the row gauge especially was very different. So like they are almost the same length, but as you can see on this one, now you can definitely see the difference in row gauge, because here I have done almost like one section of these like broader sections, 1, 2, 3 complete sections before binding off stitches here for the underarm, whereas on this version I've only been able to knit 1, 2, almost a half, not really a half. So yeah, very different row gauge, which is okay. I mean, this first sample is I love this version, but this is not what I'm basing my pattern on. So yeah, that's one difference, the gauge. Another difference, which is very visible, is this top part. So with this first version, one thing that bothered me a lot was because you knit from bottom up, and then you knit the front and the back piece separately, and then you graft the pieces together for the shoulder. So you get like a shoulder seam up here, and as you can see, they are not even up here. So like the chart has, they don't add up at the shoulder seam, and that bothers me a lot. And I tried so hard to fix it for the second version, but I think I landed on that it's not possible. Maybe you can contradict me on that one, but I couldn't understand how that would be possible. So, like, my solution was basically to add this part, a section of knitting with the main color on both the front and the back. Which, to be honest, at first, like when I started knitting with the main color here, I wasn't very happy about it. But now it looks so good, I think. It looks very, like, modern. It's like get a more modern touch, I think. I like it a lot, actually. So I'm quite happy about that that change. And this is what it's gonna be. I mean, my pattern, and this is how I want all my patterns to be. They are going to be a lot of very, like, I want them to have a lot of options. I want them to educate rather than just like holding your hand tightly. I don't know, everyone is different with how they want their patterns to be, and I can definitely understand that buying a pattern, for a lot of people, that means getting exact instructions, because that's sort of what you're paying for, to not have to think at all. But that's not how I would want to write my patterns, actually. I mean, they're going to be clear, and like, it's going to be clear what you are supposed to do, but I want them to give you help to modify according to your own preferences. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but I want to give a lot of options. So, for example, the row gauge, obviously between my first and second sample, it varied a lot. So, and I think the row gauge can vary a lot depending on a lot of things. And I want to be able to accommodate to a lot of different row gauges. So I want to give like some pointers on how to think about row gauge, and just to make sure that the pattern works for any row gauge, really. Yeah, so what else did I modify for this second version? Yeah, so one thing I wasn't... Well, I mean, I'm not gonna say I wasn't happy about it, because I love this version, and I think, like, I like the fit of these two almost equally. This is a size larger, though I'll return to that later, but I think the fit on this is actually really nice. But it is a very boxy fit. I almost didn't decrease. I decreased very, very little here. Usually you see a decrease that continues inwards a little bit more. And I didn't bind off a lot of stitches for the underarm either. And that was something I wanted to change. So the decrease here, you can actually see it, just like, it's quite visible that it's a lot, how do you say, like, yeah, a lot more stitches are decreased here. And I have bound off more stitches for the underarm as well. So the fit is a little bit more narrow, and yeah, a little bit more narrow. It's not a dramatic change. I still think this has the fit on this is a little bit better, actually. Yeah, so those are the main differences, but I have kept a lot of features of the first sample as well. All of these ribbings are knit in twisted rib, which I think is, I mean, it's a beautiful rib, but it's also a very nice rib for this kind of traditional pattern here. It gives it more of a modern touch, I think. So a double folded collar as well, but a very narrow collar in twisted rib. Yeah, it looks very modern, I think, honestly. But this is, of course, the traditional Shetland Isle stitch pattern, so You've probably seen this before with the X's and O's. It's very common, and there are patterns that use this X's and O's already. However, what's unique about this exact pattern is that, of course, you knit with the backwards technique. I have talked about it in previous episodes, so I won't go into details on it here, but basically you don't knit in the round. Well, you start knitting in the round, but then you knit back and forth for the front piece and the back piece separately. Most slipovers these days have you knit in the round all the way, and then you steek, so like you cut open for the underarms, which I haven't tried that method myself actually. I have learned to use the backwards knitting technique, and I think it's a lovely technique that's well worth spreading, so I wanted to incorporate that into the pattern. But of course you can also purl color work. That's an option as well, because that's also knitting flat, but you purl on every other row. And if you're comfortable doing that, then that's of course fine. But I'll give some like advice, and I'll give some advice on backwards knitting in the pattern, which might be good, especially if you're new to that technique. Yeah, and the color choices, right, that's also actually a difference between the samples. So the samples both use 7 colors, and there are 2 different ways to go about it. At least that's like my recommendations in the pattern. Of course you can do whatever you want. You can use only 2 colors if you want. You can use 15 colors if you want, I don't know. But I recommend using 7 colors to get this look. On my first sample I used 4 darker colors and 3 lighter colors. And on the second sample I did the opposite, so 4 lighter colors and 3 dark colors. And the one, so like on this one I used less dark colors, but one of the dark colors is the main color, which is the brown in this case. And the opposite for this one, so one of the light colors I used less, I used fewer light colors, but one of them is the main color, which is the beige. I don't know if that makes sense, but I will talk a little bit about color, choosing colors and like combining colors in the pattern as well, just to give you some guidance in case you are new to knitting color work, or new to, or like just not very confident choosing colors. I'm very happy with how these both turned out. I love this blue and brown combination. It's really, really nice, I think. Yeah, and the pattern will have, I think, 8 sizes, but the size range is between the sizes is larger than like standard sizing, just because the colorwork chart is 30 stitches, so between each size there will be a 30 stitch difference, just so that you can keep this chart intact. So I also recommend, like, if you are in between those sizes, because the size range is quite large, if you are in between sizes you can adjust your needle size to get the fit you want. But I think the size range of 8 sizes should accommodate a very big size range overall. So I think that will work out. And the final thing I'm gonna say, I talk about this a lot now, I think, but I'm very, very proud of this pattern. I just want to, no, I have 2 more things to say actually. I just want to go back to what I talked about, this traditional motif, because I have sort of diverged a little bit from the traditional motif, and the reason is that I wanted the backwards knitting technique to work out. Because the thing is, when you knit flat color work, you need to make sure that the color you bring to one side is also the color you need when you knit backwards, if that makes sense. So you need to be mindful that you use the same colors for 2 rows in a row. That was very complicated to talk about. Anyway, I got you when it comes to that. So the rows, so the motif always has like 2 rows in a row, 2 rows in a row, so that you can use the same color in one direction as in the backwards direction. Yes, as far as timeline goes for this pattern, yeah, like I said, I need to find testers, and then yeah, so maybe in the next year, beginning of next year, maybe. Yes, and the thing is with the sizing, I feel like I am all over the place. I'm sorry about that. I'm a little bit stressed because my partner is out running and I need to finish before he gets home, because I'm so embarrassed to to record and talk English when he's home. So I'm trying to get through it all before he gets back. So the last thing, this is the last thing, I promise, I'm gonna say is that the sizing is quite different between my samples. It's not something that affects the pattern, of course, but because the gauge is so different, this is like my normal size, like exactly the way I want it to fit, with like approximately 6 centimeters of positive ease, which is also what I recommend in the pattern. This is 1 size larger because of the gauge, so I should have knitted a size smaller in order to get a fit that's perfect for me. But that's okay, I'm still gonna be able to wear this, it just has a little bit more positive ease. Enough with this now, I'm gonna put it back here so we can enjoy it for the rest of the podcast. I'm very proud. I'm of course not done with the pattern writing yet, so a lot of things can still go wrong, but so far I'm very happy. Now let's talk about the other finished project, and this is also a slipover, but it's not for me, it's for my partner. So it's a little bit larger, this one, and it's a little bit wrinkled here. But he has already worn it actually, but I had to make him like, because he wears it or like he brings it to work and then he has a tendency to leave it there, but I made sure that he took it with him back home for the weekend so that I could show it to you. And I knit this in Sandnes Pergynt. First time I used this yarn actually. I really like it. It feels like a reliable yarn. I think I called it a workhorse yarn in the last episode. I'm very excited to knit more with this yarn. This color is really beautiful. Now it looks very, very bright here in the camera. I think this is more accurate. It's quite dark in real life. And I think in the last episode I talked about being worried that it was going to turn out too big, but actually it turned out great. It's a little bit oversized, but I think that's fine. It fits him really, really well. Hopefully I will be able to take some pictures when he gets back, and then I can show it here to the side. It fits him really well, and he's very happy about it. This is the second garment I knit for him. The first garment was a cardigan. I have talked about it in previous episodes, and that was such a pain to knit actually, and it didn't turn out very well. He was happy about it, but I could see that it just had a lot of fit issues. So I'm happy to say that I'm a lot more satisfied with how this turned out. The fit is good. Even like the neckline is perfect, the armhole perfect, and the length. I was worried it was going to be a little bit too short, but when I blocked it, I just stretched it out a little bit, so it turned out good in the end. There's the cuff length. quite short cuff. Or like, what's it called? This is not cuff. Hem length. I used 4mm needles, I think, and 3.5 probably for the neckline, and just a regular rib. Yeah, not much to say. So I didn't really use a pattern for this one either. However, I did use Petite Knit's sort of shoulder shaping technique. I don't know if she uses that for a lot of her slipovers, but the one slipover that I have knit from her is the Stockholm slipover V-neck. And in that pattern she uses a short row. Yeah, she has you knit a short row section here on the shoulder to get sort of like a shoulder shape here. So I definitely enjoy using that technique for my slipovers. Not on this colorwork slipover though. However, I could have done it here, but I don't want to put it in my pattern. It's not, I didn't come up with it, so that would be that would be disturbing, I think. But for these, like, these are just for myself, so I tend to copy that and put it in here. But other than that, I mean, that's the only thing I used from the Stockholm slipover pattern, really, because like my fit is different. Obviously this is not a V-neck, my gauge is different, everything is different, really. The fit is also a little bit boxy on this one. As you can see, I haven't increased a lot here, and the reason was, like I said, I was worried that it was gonna turn out too big, so I didn't want to increase too much here and get like a super wide garment around the waist. So I tried to be a little bit modest here with my increases, but the boxy fit looks really good on him, so no problem there. That's it. I think I'm gonna leave it at that. Very satisfied with this one. Now we can get into my works in progress, and actually I'm working on a slipover that's very similar to the one I made for my partner, but for myself. And I'm hoping to finish my slipover in time for all the Christmas celebrations that's coming up, because it would be nice if we could wear matching slipovers. So he could wear the dark grey one, and I could wear one in this color. So this is a new slipover, but for me. Now, it wasn't very strategic of me to... I'm gonna rip back a bit of this section, so I just started to put my needle in here so that I can just rip it back. Wasn't maybe the smartest thing to do right before recording the podcast, but it's not much to show yet anyway. You can maybe see that it's a slipover. It's the beginning of a slipover. Here's the back piece, and the front will look something like this. It looks quite small now when I... No, it's good. It's a good size. I was worried it was gonna be too big actually, so we'll see. I have no idea what's gonna happen with it after blocking. But let's first talk about the yarn. So I'm using 2 yarns held together. I don't have the label for this one, but this is Sannes alpaca följetråd, and I bought this yarn last year on like a knitting festival here in Stockholm, and it's supposed to be like an alternative yarn for silk mohair. So it's supposed to have a similar effect of like making the garment more fluffy and soft. You can almost see that it's it is quite it's not as fluffy as mohair obviously, but it's alpaca, so it has a little bit of fluff, of course. It's very, very soft. It's also very, very thin. I think I only bought one ball, and it has 400 meters. So I just bought one ball intended for a slipover, actually. But I didn't know what to combine it with. I tried it with some Holst Super Soft I had in my stash, but I didn't like the look of it. So for a year, it's just been laying around here in my yarn closet. But when I went to the yarn store just like a week ago, I ran out of this main color, the brown main color on this slipover, and I looked in my 2 local yarn stores. They didn't have it, so I had to order it. It was a bit panicky. And when I went to one of the yarn shops, they didn't have this brown yarn, but I came home with this yarn instead. Tynn Per Gynt in like a tweedy color. And maybe you can see that this is a lot more grey than the alpaca. I was at first thinking about buying, because they have a tweed color that is more white, but it looked almost, it was a very, very warm white, so it looked almost yellow-ish, and I didn't like that at all. So I took a chance and bought this grey beige color instead, hoping it would work with the alpaca, and it worked really well, I think. So let's take a little closer look on the fabric. I think it looks really nice. You still definitely get the grey beige color, but the yarn is a little bit thicker and softer thanks to the mohair. No, thanks to the alpaca. And I'm using 3.5mm needles, and I think that works fine. And yeah, it's super soft, and I'm hoping it's gonna be like good quality as well. Per Gynt is, of course, like I'm almost certain that this is a good quality yarn. This is the thinner version of Per Gynt, the standard Per Gynt, and it's a quite new yarn actually, this thin one, but very pleasant to knit with, and definitely a yarn I want to knit with a lot more. It's Norwegian wool, and the whole process of this yarn is in Norway, so like the wool is from Norway, the spinning, everything from Norway, which is nice that it's still quite local to me. However, the alpaca, I doubt that it's from, I know it's not from Norway, I doubt that it's from like Scandinavia even, unfortunately. So when it comes to like the origin of yarns and wool, I want to be better here in the podcast to actually mention where the yarn is from. I think that's a very important aspect actually of knitting, and something that I want to be more mindful of when choosing yarns to knit with. So like as often as I can, choosing yarns that are local to me, wool. Nej! Kan inte du lyssna i dina lurar? Jag gör det. Right, where was I? He got home, but I told him that he needs to to listen to music or something so that I can finish. Yeah, like I said, to me it's very important that the yarn is somewhat local. I want to get better at choosing yarns that are somewhat local as often as I can, and I want to be transparent about the origins of the yarn that I show here on the podcast. Just to like, yeah, it's important to know that information. Then of course what you do with the information is up to you. Maybe you don't care, that's fine. I don't think it's fine, but to not care, but yeah. Anyway, getting back to the slipover, I don't think I have a lot more to say about it though. I'm basically knitting the exact same type of slipover as I did for my partner, just a simple stockinette texture, and also quite boxy fit. And yeah, hopefully in the next episode it will be finished so that I can wear it for you. And I have, like I said, 400 meters of the alpaca and 2 skeins of the tin pergint, and this the meterage on this one is 205 meters on 50 grams, so yeah, a little bit over 400 meters of this yarn as well. And I think this should be enough for a slipover. We'll see how long it'll get, but should be enough, I think. We'll see. Right, so I have one more sweater cast on actually, but I think I'll wait. I don't think I'll have time to talk about that now, because I want to get into my Christmas knits, because in my next episode, if all goes according to plan, I will be finished with them. So I want to show the whips that I have now. I also have 2 more Christmas knits that I haven't cast on yet. So in my last episode I talked about planning to knit 4 Christmas gifts, and I have started 2 of them, so I think I'm well on my way to achieve my goal. One of them, where do I put this? I put it on the floor. The first one I started with is a hat, and it's the Oslo hat, which is a well-known pattern from Petite Knit. And this is for my partner's dad. And if you are familiar with the Oslo hat pattern, you get this long section here that you're supposed to fold up twice. So it looks a little bit weird right now, but maybe I can do a temporary fold so you can see a little bit better. Something like this. So I have just started the decreases here. The yarn I'm using is this yarn, Ulrika Natur. And this has gotten a lot of hype in Sweden, at least. It's from Svarta Fåret, which is a Swedish brand, I think, or it's like the same owner as Järbo Garn, which of course is a very popular brand here in Sweden. And this yarn it's very popular. I tried to figure out before I bought it where it was from, or like where the wool was from or something, you know, any information. Couldn't find it anywhere. I emailed Svarta Fåret's email address. They haven't replied. It's been several weeks, so that's very strange, I think. But when I got the yarn, after having ordered it, I found out that it's made in India. Now this is, you can't see here, but so that just bummed me out a little bit. I can understand why people like this yarn. It's supposedly untreated wool, but it's very, very soft. They have, especially this Ulrika Natur, I think they have like 7 different colors or something like that, and they are all very, very beautiful. I did buy more of this yarn. I bought this color for the hat. I also bought this green color for another Christmas gift hat, and also like a rusty red color that you'll probably see sometime in the future. But apart from those skeins, I'm not sure if I'm gonna buy it again. Partly because if I get back to the if I get back to the slipover I made for my partner, like I said, I knit this in Peer Gynt, and I think Peer Gynt has almost exactly the same properties as this yarn. The meterage is basically the same. For Ulrika Natur it's, let's see, 100 meters on 50 grams, and I think Peer Gynt has, I think 100 meters or 90 meters, but very similar. And like both of them are untreated wool. Yeah, basically the same properties. And if this yarn then is made in India and this is made in Norway, I think this is the better option for me. So yeah, but you will see this yarn again because like I said, I bought some more. But that's probably gonna be it. Yeah, we'll see if I buy it again. But the colors are so beautiful, so it's a shame actually. It's got these like heathered color, and it knits up very, very beautifully. I am knitting the second largest size. At first I started with the largest size, but I think my gauge is a bit loose. It's looser than what's recommended in the pattern, so I ripped back and made a smaller size. It still looks quite big, but I think it'll be fine. Hopefully it doesn't stretch when I block it, but it should be fine. So almost done with this one. And like I said, I will knit another Christmas gift hat in this yarn, and I'm thinking about knitting the pattern, the watch cap hat, I think it's called, from Pearl Soho, which is a ribbed hat, and that's gonna be for my partner's brother. And the second Christmas gift that I have cast on is a Lovikka mitten. It looks quite, yeah, it's a bit messy right now because I just started like the thumb here. I'm actually going to rip back this whole thing because it's very small. And I mean, I can still wear it, like it's not too small, but I think it stretches a little bit too much here, and I want to, well, let's start from the beginning. Lovikka mittens. Lovikka mittens. If you are Swedish, you are probably very familiar with what Lovikka mittens are. It's a very like traditional Swedish mitten pattern. The story goes that there was this poor family living up in the north of Sweden 100 years ago maybe, and at that time Sweden was still quite poor, and this family was poor, and the wife in the family, she knit mittens to earn some extra money. One day, the story goes, there was a man who ordered mittens from her, but he complained that they were too cold, so she had to figure out how to make them warmer. And that's when she, like, the inside of the mitten, she ruggade is the Swedish word, I don't know the English word, but sort of you use a steel brush to fluff up the yarn. So the mitten gets warmer because it gets like the wool just, you get like a tighter fabric of the wool. And that's how the Lovikka mittens came about. And you can't really see it on my mitten here, but you're supposed to have some embroidery here. And the most traditional type of embroidery is blue and red, which is like the Sami color and the Sami colors. And they bought mittens from her as well, and they wanted their colors on the embroidery. Something like that. It's the story. And I'm making these for my partner's brother's wife, and she is from Taiwan, so I thought this would be a fun gift for her. She's trying to get used to living in this cold weather, and yeah, it would be nice to give her something that's a typical Swedish mitten. When it comes to sizing, I always, when I knit mittens for myself, I haven't knitted that many, but a few, and they always turn out too big. It hasn't been a problem because, like, in the winter time, I usually wear like double mittens, or like I have some gloves that I can wear underneath my mittens, so I get a super thick fabric. I'm quite a cold person, and especially my hands and fingers get really cold. So for me, I need to wear double layers, otherwise I get too cold. But I think these mittens will be very warm. I didn't want them to be too big, and I used my own, like I'm using my own hands as some kind of guideline, because I think she is at least, like, her hands should be at least as small as mine, if not smaller. So I think if I can wear them, then she's gonna be able to wear them, and if they turn out a little bit too big for her, then that's better than them being too small. But I mean, I think these are too small actually, because I want to do this because I have a steel brush that I can use to get this sort of fluffy inside. And I also think, like, traditionally you're supposed to, when you wash it, you're supposed to make sure, you're supposed to almost felt it a little bit, so like you treat it quite roughly when you wash it, and that will make it felt a little bit. And I think, like, both the felting and the fluffing I don't know what it's called in English, but these kind of processes you do after you've finished knitting will make it even smaller. At least that's what it should be like that, I think. So yeah, if it's already like a little bit on the smaller side, like when I put in my hand, it stretches, the fabric stretches a little bit, and I don't want it to be like that. Then I think I've knitted a size that's too small. So I'll rip back the whole thing. But that's, I mean, it's okay. It's I knit this on 5mm needles. You can see that the yarn is very thick. So it's a quick knit. So it's okay. I have wound up the balls and they're quite big. So this yarn is also called Lovikka yarn. So it's kind of a yarn that you specifically use to make these Lovikka mittens. And I think it's really lovely to have a white, really snowy white mitten. I haven't decided on the colors for the embroidery. There are some versions that have like just simply white embroidery, so you almost get like a texture here on the cuff, and I think that looks stunning. But it would be fun to have some colors, and especially the traditional blue and red Sami colors would be nice, I think. But we'll see, I'm not there yet, because obviously I need to knit this again. And yeah, I'm using Lovikka yarn. There are a few different retailers that sell Lovikka yarn. I use the one from Järbo. And this is the first ball. I have a little bit left. And this is the second. And they are both 100 grams each. Yeah, so that's all the knitting I'm gonna show today. I hope to record another episode before Christmas so that I can show you the Christmas gifts that I have finished before I give them away. I think that's a lot nicer than like showing a photo or a video from like recorded from before. So hopefully I'll be able to do that. So I'm gonna show you some of the things that's been on my mind lately. I'll try to be quick about it because I need to get going. But first of all, I have fallen in love with this look right here. So when it comes to knitting like camisoles, I have never been very drawn to that. I've talked previously about me not really knitting summer garments. It just hasn't been my thing. I tend to stop knitting basically during the summer. But this picture just made me really inspired to knit a camisole, because this really shows how you can wear it not only in the summer but actually like in the spring or in the fall. Maybe this will be a little bit too cold to wear in the winters here in Sweden at least, but it just looks really nice to wear the camisole with some kind of blouse or shirt underneath. And this is the camisole number 5 from My Favorite Things Knitwear, but there are of course a lot of beautiful camisole patterns out there. And I found this on Needles and Loops is the name of her Instagram account. Her name is Vivian, I think. So very beautiful and inspiring. And this sort of made me start thinking about like other summer-ish knits, or like not necessarily summer knits, but knits that remind you of summer clothing, but they could be worn in the fall and spring and maybe even winter. So I also found this dress that I thought was so beautiful. This is actually based on a camisole pattern. She writes that it's based on camisole number 5, also from My Favorite Things Knitwear, but she has sort of made it longer, so she's turned it into a dress. And because I think she just made that up herself. And it seems like she has a guide on her stories, on how she did it, but she really got the fit right and the shaping, and a nice split hem as well. So like a camisole and a camisole based dress is definitely something that that looks really good. And if you knit a camisole dress, you can wear it in the same way with something underneath. So like if you wear a shirt and then you put the camisole dress on top of that, I think would look very good. A little bit on the same theme, I would like to knit a skirt as well, and I have found 2 beautiful skirt patterns. One of them is a pattern that's called Basic Rib Skirt from a designer called Ann-Katrin. I think she's the one who has designed it. It also has a split hem, which looks absolutely stunning. And another skirt pattern that I found is from a Swedish designer, Hagenhuset, and it's called Ribba skirt. Both of these skirts are knit in like a ribbing all the way. One of them has a split hem, which I think actually is really nice. The other one doesn't, but it's probably an easy modification to just make a split hem. And with the Ribba skirt, I know that it's knit on small needles and it's all over ribbing, so it's a time-consuming project. So if I would knit it, I need to be committed, and maybe I'm not there just yet, but I'm definitely feeling like that's something I'm missing in my wardrobe, some kind of skirt or dress in a woolly fabric. Yeah, maybe sometime soon that will be on my needles. And finally, I want to talk about actually a color combination that has inspired me a lot. I was gonna mention it in the last episode, but I forgot. And it's this picture that made me go wild, because it's so beautiful. This is a French woman who has test knitted a pattern from yarn flakes. The pattern is called Figures Cardigan, and it's a beautiful pattern in itself, but it's the color combination that really I think is so beautiful. This like peachy pink and like cobalt blue. I definitely feel the urge to knit something in that color combination. I also found another sweater that has a similar color combination, and this pattern is called Marchetta, which is a pattern I would love to knit actually. And this version I just think had a beautiful color combination. Also this a bit more of a dark blue, but with this peachy pink. I think that's what you call it. And you can actually see that I was inspired by this color combination for this vest. It's barely visible, but you can see here I have the dark blue, and this you can't really see, but this color, these two rows, is a bit more peachy than the beige. It's not super visible, but I don't know, something about that combination is just, yeah, that's all I have time for today. I hope you're well. I hope you're knitting a lot of things and you're not stressing over Christmas knits. I feel quite mellow. I was stressing with this one actually. Like I said, I had a bit of a panic. I couldn't get the hold of this yarn. It was sold out. I don't know why this color specifically was sold out everywhere, but it's a beautiful color, so maybe not that surprising. But I had to finish this before tomorrow really, because we're having this art gallery at my I work. I talked about it in the last episode, but I made it. It's finished and it's gonna dry up before tomorrow for sure. So now I don't have to stress anymore. I can finish my Christmas gift knits calmly, so it should be fine. And I've started to think about what I'm gonna have as a Christmas Eve cast on. We'll see. But more on that in the next episode. I'll see you then. Goodbye.